when people talk to you, they're going to be using more criticism than critique. They're definitely going to be using more criticism than critique. And in another video, I gave the contrast in the definitions. The criticism is always pointing out the fault, pointing out the wrong, and the critique is the other half, actually adding the helpful advice, adding the tips, the little solutions, and things like that. So you're going to get a lot of criticism in circles that like to gossip. Be careful of gossip circles. You hear about this all the time. Any place where there's big bodies of people, work, school, church, teams, clubs, you're going to get gossips because circles of people talk about other people. This is just what happens. Even if it's for the positive, you still need a reference point. If not about each other, you're going to be talking about the kids, the spouse or the mate. You're going to be talking about coworkers, co-students, teachers, shows on TV that involve roles that are played by other people. So you're still going to be talking about people. But how do you get out of being associated with the negative groups that only talk down, that only offer criticisms, associated with criticism rather than critique? How do you avoid being associated and sharing the same fate and being caught up in the same net and same grid and same time lock and same light lock as those who participate in malicious gossip? The first thing you want to do is cut the magnet off that attracts them. The magnet that would attract them is to be a person who talks negatively about others primarily, dominantly. If this is your dominant conversation, birds of a feather will flock together, even if they haven't known each other in forever. Birds of a feather will flock together, even if they haven't known each other in forever. So even if they're new, even if they never met, they'll still link up. They'll still be grouped in together. This is the wheat from the chaff. The wheat in the chaff is being gathered up for harvest. You don't just have people being severed. This is why you can't seem to get away from certain negative influences and certain gossips, etc. Because they're being allowed to grow together because the harvest time hasn't come yet. And it doesn't have to be an event. A harvest time could be any point where you separate from those who are of opposite nature. Graduating from high school can be a harvesting. You don't see half of those people ever again in life. So this is a harvesting. College is another level of harvesting. Anytime when you get the sifting out of people, one going to a higher level versus another group of people staying on a lower level, that distinction, that dichotomy is the chasm. So in that, you want to be mindful of who you're linked up with and which circle of influence you belong to, because it's going to pull you in. And the nasty part about malicious gossips is that it turns around on each other. I've known malicious gossips. I know gossipers. And what usually happens is they get together and talk bad about everybody else. But then when they're siphoned off even further, when those groups are split even further, they'll talk about each other. Not only will they get together and talk about everybody else, but when they're away from each other, they actually talk about each other too. See, gossip knows no bounds because it's ruled by a demonic government, an energy siphoning Luciferian practice that is set to work negatively in favor of the balance. Somebody has to round up the chaff. Somebody has to round up the tares, just like somebody has to round up the wheat. Somebody has to gather all the good guys, just like somebody has to gather all the bad guys. It's not so much that opposites attract, but similarities attract. Like attracts like. If you're a good person and you're thinking in a particular way, if you're a person who has his head in the books, you're not going to attract a person who despises such things. You're not going to find yourself with these kind of friends, these kind of associates, acquaintances. You're not going to find yourself frequenting the places where they go. You're not going to find yourself hanging with these types of people And vice versa. If you're a person that's in the streets, the last person that you're expected to be seen with is some corporate America entity that knows nothing of the streets. You're not going to see a person with a fatigue outfit with a gun on his waist and crack in his pocket standing next to a person with a computer bag in a three-piece suit standing on the same corner having a conversation without people around them being suspicious. It's going to be considered an oddity. So like attracts like. And if that principle is ever violated, you'll see that order is disrupted. So mind your circle. Those are the two things to realize. If you want to get away from the gossip circles, when people start coming to mind, start thinking of the good qualities. And if you have people who affect you negatively come into mind often, counteract it with someone who represents the opposite characteristics, just so you can balance and mute out that energy.